This video is about the ins and outs of 4 types of scouting. It's a part of my personal journey I have been on spanning over 2 decades of work. I appreciate you considering liking, commenting, or simply subscribing to my channel. And before going any further, thank you for watching. It's been years since I stopped playing pro ball and considered the fact that the commitment of scouting is just more than making basketball 100% of your life. It's an ever-consuming situation. A lot of people will likely never give you such an in-depth account. The real guys out there, I won't name names, they will give it to you straight, but it's one of the, if not the loneliest job in the basketball community ever. I get asked by many people that are trying to break into the game how it really is, and till now I have held back on my version till now. First off, there are 4 types of scouting that really are worthwhile and that really pay out well. It's always good to know this. Secondarily, whichever one you'd consider going for, knowing the game alone is never enough. Watching continuously, learning, and evolving is a part of the process, and if you cannot come to terms with this reality, you better kiss the chances of ever doing this type of work goodbye. So here we go. College scouting. The notion of how scouting came to be and how it has evolved ever since the game has been played stems from the college ranks. The age-old question of will a player's skill set translate well from the college level to the pros is always asked at this level of scouting. I for one was lucky to undergo my development in this area very thoroughly and had the luck to be alongside great guys. I won't name names too much, but by far the biggest name was Bob Ferry. Traveling to games and being on site, talking with prospects when I could, and talking with fans and other scouts was a great learning experience. Watching games on tape and later online to uncover that one guy that could potentially impact a pro team was the end goal that I was after. One trick of the trade I can reveal is the time I used to spend on site and watching the coaching staff interact with the player and how players would react on the bench, during timeouts, while heading back to the locker room, or while warming up was by far the most enlightening part of the job. You can watch game tapes or online as much as you want to, but body language can only be seen best with the naked eye, and as much as I am an analytics guy. Now, back when I used to scout college games, even though it was for a very limited time, I got to learn fast what body language signs to look for. One other point that needs attention is that watching games alone will never cut it. I was tremendously lucky to learn from more experienced scouts that were open and taught me that networking off the court was critical. Networking is not in the conventional sense though. Ever so often coaches would be called up to be asked about recruits, and if you are there to catch a bit of the conversation to get your own scouting up to par. In this sense, I had all the luck in the world while I would make sure to talk with the coaches after the games they'd play. College scouting reputation and staying true to your format of reporting is an element that you end up uncovering in due time. NCAA games are fast-paced and you have little to no time to report, so if you do not have a fast shorthand to note down things, you'll fall hard. One example I love to go back to is the time I went to scout Lee Naskliza, 2002 to 2003, Missouri. I got picked to scout him due to the fact that I had an affinity with his profile from Europe. I watched 4 consecutive games, and the more I saw him each game, he had evolved from the scrawny kid that had played the U18 national team with Lithuania to a solid forward playing college ball. He had become so efficient playing off the ball and much more effective on defense that it stunned me by far. But the actual difference with him was his attitude. He was so shy when younger that I never imagined that he would be such an extrovert. He had become a solid cheerleading guy for his teammates. The jump for him to the college scene had changed his personality. A lot of scouts draw conclusive evidence from what they read off stats sheets, and they potentially misread or overlook the big picture of how a player can evolve. I always used to do added homework after I would finish watching a game, and that's what would always give me the upper hand. College scouts are invaluable, and this is the space where one really learns the ins and outs of the craft, and is vital to bear in mind that at this level development, like players develop, is not an exact science, not one bit. Pro scouting. Out of all the types of scouting, by far the most controversial of them all. Pro scouts are the combination of college scouts and the guys that look at pro talent at the same time. They commonly provide inside information on NBA/G League level talent that helps out front office personnel in decision making. GMs and presidents of basketball operations usually rely on the insight, but pro scouts don't go all the way to the executive level of a franchise to report their findings ever. As a pro scout, I have been involved in a few cases of poaching players in my day, back when the D-League was still around and two-way contracts were just emerging. I have also seen my fair share of young guys that have tried to find a new team in a new city and have tried to encourage them to do exactly that, to seek their shot at revitalizing a stunning college career into a professional contract situation that was stable to live off of. Pro scouts are the exact opposite of what advanced scouts are. As a pro scout, I cared less about strategy and plays on the court. I simply used to track down players off the court and tried to change their minds or even help them make their minds up at times to go for specific contracts that would work in the favor of the franchise I used to work for. I used to live for the free agency period and how I could potentially see my list of guys end up in the best way I could get them to. Kind of like how agents assist their own pool of players, but doing that internally for just the franchise you work for could be parallel to draw from further. One of my major key performance indicators was, however, very unusual now when I look at it in hindsight, damn well piling up the development league team with the franchise's own players so if they'd be called upon my name would be in the mix. It was maybe the only way my name would ever really be heard by the brass at top level. Advanced scouting. The least glamorous of them all, yet the version of scouting that is the most rigorous of them all. This is my own subjective view, so please do not take it to heart. As an advanced scout, I used to get flown out to numerous games prior to the coaching staff beginning their prep work to watch opponents and dissect literally every single play and version of what an opponent would potentially be able to play out. I had to be so comprehensive in my reporting that it would literally take hours on end to hand in the optimal type of paperwork I drew up in 48 hours or less. My work would then find its way to the assistant coach in charge of utilizing the work I did to prep for opponents. Ideally, I used to save the assistant coach time. My tendency reports, video workups I compiled from our video analysts, and added write-ups were so handy that I was able to catch most plays called out by the opposition. It might have been the one trick up my sleeve I had in reading opponents really well. Again, it should go without saying that being on site and being able to catch the plays called as an advanced scout was the world of difference, no doubt. This is now in a bit of flux post-COVID life in terms of scouting, but nonetheless, with the on-court version catching so much detail, could piss off your opponent, but that is what this type of scouting is about, and I have to say that it used to pay out pretty well too. Overall, it's kind of acting as a spy for your own team and being able to make use of the acumen you gather as a tactician that impacts your own organization. On the contradictory side of things, all teams usually are open books and utilize more or less variants of the same plays at the highest level, so it's not entirely a loss to scouts on how they do deliver insight. Life as an advanced scout means you are constantly moving. You are diligent and so detail-orientated that understanding plays and dissecting them becomes second nature. If watching plus 150 games sounds interesting to you, in person, and trying to figure out the framework or dynamics of plays that are called out, you get the essence of how this job works, and good luck to you for it. International scouting. Currently, I am between jobs and recently stopped working for InStatSport as their head of global basketball. In the past, while running a small consultancy, I often feel that my life on the road is really no different than an international scout. A major difference is that as a consultant I get to pick what teams I work with or need my assistance overall. Just like advanced scouts, this type of scouting means travel for extended periods, not seeing family, friends, not having any personal life, all for the love of the game. You'd not be confined to NBA but international basketball, and depending on the situation you can find yourself one day in Africa and the next in South America. If you really hit the lottery big time, you get to scout some good top-level FIBA prospects at international competition, but usually it's the grind of low-level U16 or U18 games that you get stuck with. There also is the added factor of knowing the difference between the US way of scouting AAU games, college games, and how the international game works. Many potential inquiries I get these days asking me about how to become a scout usually overlook the fact that they think they know the ins and outs, differences and rules, of how the game is played on either side of the Atlantic, but fall short. Like advanced scouts, there really is no glamour involved in what you do, and it's such a grind that it can take a physical toll on you. One thing I have recognized is that usually former pro ballers that were any good playing internationally opt for this type of job, and they do a damn good job as they have been through the grind of playing and living the type of lifestyle that goes along with this sort of job. Compiling reports and knowing how to watch players on site as well as being able to give feedback when called upon is vital. It takes a good number of years to be able to really be any good. In recent years, there have been a number of companies that have gone into this space with hopes of being able to provide a full-scale service to not just NBA teams, but international teams. However, it should be noted that rather than working for a service, being a part of a team and a franchise is always a better option, and it allows you to hone in on developing your craft and being able to clearly get the nuances of the job locked down. The bottom line. After having gone over all the above, it's all up to you to decide on how to go with a possible scouting job. The great thing with scouting is that you get your hands dirty fast and can make a nice living of it. The ideal case, however, is that it's the life for singles. If you are in a relationship or are married, it's highly likely you are going to piss your significant other off. If you have kids, they will likely end up resenting you at one point or another. While this is the case from a personal standpoint of a scout predominantly, each case is separate and can be different. Again, I am giving my subjective view, so please take this into account. From a professional stance, a scout is vital for any team. The know-how, the duties, and the involvement are amazing, and you are an unsung hero that can make or break a season. You won't ever be in the spotlight, but you will definitely be the person that moves the spotlight onto the right kind of people and get recognition for it once everything is said and done. The site, Ubuntu Basketball, has amazing insight about how scouting works. We do a lot with our clients and how we do our best to assist them and work towards a better understanding of smart basketball. Since December 2022, we began a special monthly membership where you gain access to private breakdowns, raw game footage, and so much more every week. I hope you especially head on over to check that out as well. Reach out to me if you have any specific questions. I am not that hard to reach.